to open the meeting, Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So you can see the agenda in front of us. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, at this time, Tanya, talk to us?
There, and I should have enough handouts to just about everybody. It'll be a lot easier to look at the map. I'm gonna grab the council. Oh, they have that. Okay. Okay. And we can share with the public one.
No, it's all right. Maybe quite okay.
And if you change your mind and you'd like a handout, just let me know. So I'll start off by giving everybody just a little bit of background on the project. So the city last had a water facility plan done back in the kind of early 2000s. And that study recommended several improvements, but at that time, for some reason, likely cash needs or issues, the city didn't pursue any of the recommended improvements. And so that facility plan has been amended right now, which is what the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources, they recommend. They're one of the main funding arms for water and sewer projects. And so that facility amendment was completed, and that kind of evaluated the piping in the water distribution system as well as the water tower, and as much as you can with buried piping. You know, usually we're talking to city staff about where water main breaks are concerned, where fire flows are concerned, or with the tower. There was a recent inspection done, and we had some information. But based on that, age and condition, a significant portion of the water system, especially kind of over on this west side, was constructed in the 1920s, and that piping is 4-inch cast iron. It's reaching the end of its useful life, being, you know, almost 100 years old. And it's also undersized by current design standards. Current design standards for water systems would recommend a minimum of 6-inch pipe be installed. And the main reason for that is to convey fire flows that are adequate to protect home and property. And then the water tower also, the coating system is getting to the point where to protect that piece of infrastructure, it should be recoated both on the inside of the tank and the outside of the tank. And then there's also some minor metals improvements that need to be done. It needs a new interior ladder, a new safety client system so it's safe for either inspection crews that come or city staff to be climb it. And then some minor platform and hatch improvements. And so in looking at all that, what we recommend as the most critical needs for the city to replace the aging water main and protect the tower would be to look at the aging 4-inch cast iron water main in Alcester Street and the alley west of Highway 11 from 1st to 3rd. So that's some of the older 1920s 4-inch. If you have a handout, it's shown on that handout in orange. There is also I'll back up. So part of the reason Ofsted was chosen is not only because of its age, but because the city applied for a CDBG grant to get funding to do sewer improvements in Ofsted as well. If you're doing both water and sewer in a street, and it's often most economical to dig it up and open cut replace it. Otherwise, for sewer improvements, you can sometimes do a trenchless repair within the existing pipe. But because Ofsted Street was targeted to try to get additional funds to open cut and do the water and sewer, that was chosen as part of Phase 1A. Since this has been prepared just in the last couple of days, we found out that the city will not qualify for lower to moderate income, and so they won't be eligible for the CDBG grant, and that's a recent change. And so we recommend wording the funding application that it could either be the Phase 1A improvement shown on this map, which includes kind of the bulleted list at the bottom of the first page. It would be Ofsted Street, the water tower coating, and the alley, those three. Phase 1B would be future, but it includes 4th Street, basically from the water tower to the west side of town. And the idea there is to kind of replace small undersized water main that's aging with a larger trunk main that would go in and improve fire flow to the west side of the community. With Ofsted Street not being able to be pursued, we recommend wording the application to Danner so that you can do either. And when I say either, we're getting sanitary sewer televising reports in within about the next 2 to 3 weeks. We'll be able to tell the condition of the sewer. If we would find a sewer in some part of town that's gotta be open cut replaced and there's water main nearby, it maybe makes sense to redirect some of those funds to another area or 4th Street. And so 4th Street or Ofsted would be kind of the main areas to be looked at. So, but if you word it very open like that, the state's much more flexible in allowing you to direct it to different locations. So, as part of the facility plan, we have to talk about the project costs as well as the impact user rates. So
Yeah, you said we lost some grant money?
well, I wouldn't say you lost it, it was, you weren't eligible for it. So previously, the city qualified for lower to moderate income
Right.
status, which means, and Harley, help me out here if I'm wrong, is that the income, the average income has to be below 51% of the average income in the state?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd have a lower income. When they had the census data come back from the 2020 census and analyzed it, it showed that that income had actually risen and you were above the 51% threshold. The city did try to reestablish that by doing a survey where basically households are being asked for their income to be surveyed. And then those results are averaged a couple different ways, but even with that completed, it was still above that.
Do you have a dollar figure on that that would have helped with the project since we didn't qualify then? How much money was that?
The grant that was being applied for, oh goodness, was it 1.6?
Really?
I think it was 1.6. It's been a while since I've looked at that
What
number.
year was that applied for?
That was applied for this fall.
It's up to 50% of the project, correct? So up to 50% of the project, so the project is $2.some million, so we could apply for up to 50% through CBDG.
Yeah.
Okay.
The city has received CDBG grants in the past. They did receive a CDBG grant for the wastewater project. So you have benefited from the program in the past, but unfortunately with that change in income status, it's no longer an option for funding. So lower interest loans are an option. And so I'll go into that. Does anybody have any questions before I get into the project costs and the impact user rates?
So on phase 1B, like the things in yellow, those are gonna be the streets tore up and those?
No, phase 1B wouldn't be part of the planned improvements right now, it'd be future. So it's
Oh, okay.
unknown when it would occur.
No
Um,
idea. when that would occur.
No idea. Unless the money would be redirected, as I mentioned before, an offset wasn't done, and the city decided to do 4th Street instead. So, the project, as far as just construction, the idea would be you'd apply for funding to Danner in January. They'd make a determination on funding in March. Then you'd start designing the proposed improvements, and you'd design in 25. So any construction that would occur, then you'd bid in early 26, and the project would be constructed during the 2026 construction season. So that's when you'd actually, see contractors, equipment, and that type of thing in town. So, and it's likely this project would probably be bid as 2 bid packages. You'd probably have the tower project bid as 1 package, because that's kind of a separate contractor that comes in and applies those coatings to those tanks and does all the prep and metals work. And then you'd have a separate project be bid for the water main replacement. That's usually an underground excavation type contractor. And so you'd be better off bidding them separate than having one general, the other that costs extra, So the total cost for the phase 1A improvements is $2,230,600. The Ofsted Street portion, so the water main replacement at Ofsted Street is projected at $1,115,400. Recoating the water tower and doing the metals work is $461,700. And then that 2-block alley west of Highway 11 from First to Third, that's $653,500. So total project cost, $2.23 million. And when you get into the rate impact, so, and that's part of what we have to present as with the public hearing. The Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources looks at a typical household as a household with, probably 3 to 4 people in it, that uses around 5,000 gallons of water each month. So 5,000 gallons is kind of their basis. Right now, the monthly water bill in Alcester for 5,000 gallons of usage is $53.75. And so assuming that Danner will not provide any grant or principal forgiveness, because we always have to kind of paint the worst case scenario, the project loan with a 30-year term and a 3.75 interest rate, which is a low interest, or like a low interest loan that they provide, that would increase rates $26.66 to $80.41 a month for 5,000 gallons of usage. And the one thing I want to just mention to kind of have everybody keep in mind is that the DNR typically doesn't provide grant or principal forgiveness for communities unless their rates are above $65 a month. And so with Alcester's down at $53.75 right now, it's probably pretty unlikely that this city would be awarded any grant or principal forgiveness. That's also, though, highly dependent on the types of applications that come in January. So the number of applications, the number of communities that qualify for low to moderate income or have other, needs or concerns that, critical needs with the drinking water system, all of that can affect what they decide to do. So, and that's too hard to tell. So, trying to think of anything else we haven't gone over. Our schedule, grant. Harley, do you want to say anything more about the financial portion?
It would just be based on, the board's decision at that time. So, yeah, I think it was $55, but I'm not too sure, it might have changed. But yeah, they could potentially qualify for a water quality grant for the drinking portion, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not guaranteed, but it'd be best to run this one as a project surcharge, because it benefits the whole community, and then that doesn't go against their constitutional debt. So then they can take out another loan for like other capital improvement projects.
Yeah, we definitely recommend that as well. That's what most communities do for water and sewer projects in South Dakota, just the way the debt structure is in the state and with bond council recommendation.
So for income based or qualifying for that grant, is that just a yearly thing, a biannual, like every 2 years, every 3 years, or when would be the next time? Yeah, when would be the next time we could do a survey like that to possibly qualify?
The next one is, this one was based off of the 2020 census. So whichever the next census is.
2030, there'd be another census, and
Yeah.
so that would evaluate it again. I think this time the city paid to have, for their own survey to be completed.
Harley and I did it.
You guys did it? Okay.
Yeah, it came in at 46%. Both methods were used.
Okay.
It came in at 46%, so they were below that,
Yeah.
51% moderate income, so,
That seems like a ways to try to get to 51.
yeah. So depending on what, the next census says,
Yeah.
we can always apply again, so,
Yeah.
So the next possibility would be till 2030.
yeah.
That's when the whole census is, but can you guys do it again before 2030, like you did it this time?
We could, you could, I think the surveys usually are good for about 6 months. And then after that, we can always retry again next year or something like that if you guys wanted to.
You could do it this summer and just send people door to door, get a better sampling. We had about 25% return rate.
Yeah, there was about
Roughly.
300 and something surveys that got sent back. And the way we did it was we just calculated all the surveys. And
It was
then,
100.
yeah,
Is that a good response or is that a poor response?
I was happy with it. I mean, as
That's
fast
very
as we,
cool.
as
Yeah.
fast as we pushed it out,
Yeah.
I was
really
pleasantly surprised with the return rate, so.
Also have to think who is returning it though, because if
It
it's all
was-
high income families returning it, it's gonna skew the perception of data.
Right.
That was.
So if we look at doing it next summer, have a couple of high school kids going door to door in the evenings.
Maybe you could find a senior citizen that would do that in the evenings too.
Do you have anybody that would want to volunteer?
But saves me $26 a month.
Yeah. So for those, I mean, breaking it down for those that don't use 5,000 gallons, it equates to about $5.33 per 1,000 gallons of water use. So for my wife and I, we use on average about 2,000 gallons a month, so it'd be $10.66. So if you think back to when you get your water bill and you look at your usage, you can kind of calculate based on that what that surcharge would be for that full surcharge.
So going back to the question that Christie asked, is that if it is resurveyed and we do qualify, but this is already in motion, how does that
So
work?
CDBG and the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources are two totally different funding arms within the state.
Right.
CDBG is with the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And so, and just to give you an idea, like, I think they only had 3 projects last round that got it.
Yeah, they mostly, and then a lot of them were demolition projects, so they weren't really water and sewer projects either. So sometimes their priorities kind of shift to on what they award, so.
So just because you qualify doesn't mean that's a sure bet. No. And then the other funding mechanism, the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources, that's through the, kind of the government organization with the state that oversees water and sewer. And so they provide low interest loans, most commonly. Sometimes they will provide some grants. But the one thing with them too is it's always a very low interest loan. And so right now, when you look at the lending economy and to be able to get a 3.75 rate for 30 years, it is a very good interest rate. And so at least they're trying to support communities and help them with needs that way. And really, once you go down kind of the DANR funding path, that's you'd apply in January, you'd find out in March. You have 2 years after that to close the loan and start the project. I will say right now that if you would delay, chances are the costs, like we have engineering planned in 25. If we delay and not start till 26, it would cost a little bit more. If bids go out in 27 and 26, it's gonna cost more. And so
Nothing
that-
goes down.
No, I know, we all wish it would, but, and so that's where you might have to either come up with some additional funds on your own or try to take out an additional loan, if there's a deficit. But once you start down the road with DANR funding, they'll give you that full funding package. And then it would be difficult once the project's fully funded to go get a grant somewhere else. But if there was a different project in the future, that's when I'd probably recommend looking at more of a grant fund for a different project with the water system.
Yeah, and CDBG is an annual, so you can apply twice per year, April 1 and then October 1 of next year, so. I mean, we
Except
can
about
always,
LMI,
yeah,
we can't apply.
right.
Does that money come from the federal government initially?
Initially, yeah, that comes from HUD housing.
Okay, that's where that one comes from.
So it may not be there.
Mhm.
I mean, anything can happen.
That's,
Anything can
I
happen,
know.
yeah.
and the SRF funding program comes through EPA.
Yeah,
I
EPA.
think that one's probably more solid. There's so much funding nationally for water and sewer through that I think there'd be a lot of protests.
So when you look at the rates and everything here, when is the last time, because we moved here a year ago, and we look at the rates there from where we've experienced, these are very decent rates for water. Good Lord. I mean,
Yeah, I
but
think
nobody likes an increase, I get that. But yet, when's the last time we've had to have an increase because of work that has to be done? Anybody recall?
For water,
Yeah. for this.
probably the last major project was the water tower. and that was in 1980. And that bond was paid off within the last 10 years. The only other thing right now for utility rates has been the sewer and those 3 surcharges that have come into play in the last 4 years. But as far as the base rates, it's been, I'd have to look back again, but it's been a few years since we've done just a base rate increase. We didn't discuss any base rate increases this year just because of all of the surcharges on the sewer side and the potential increase on this with surcharges. And then we have that $5 surcharge on the water side right now to finish paying for the water meter upgrade. So we didn't discuss doing a base increase just because of those and the feedback we've gotten from a good portion of the community that's already struggling financially because of their utility bill, not just their utility bills, but everything else.
Personally, no one knows that those are good water prices. Like, no one is
That
aware
was-
of that.
You bring a great point. Next point, is the public really educated enough to know this is really decent and maintenance isn't free? Progress is always gonna cost money. And I'm just curious, and I mean,
Well, our water tower is serious, so if that could collapse.
In speaking with Lonnie, while we've been going through this, sorry to bring into it, Lonnie, but with the water tower, not maintaining that and doing those repairs, if that water tower was to fail, to replace the water tower is gonna be just as much as phase 1A. It's gonna be a several million-dollar project. If we can make these improvements and maintain it properly, the experts have told me and Lonnie that it could be used basically indefinitely.
that would be the right way to do it. But again,
Do the water mains need to be replaced immediately? Knock on wood, we've been graced and haven't had a lot of breaks. Will that luck continue? Who's to say? But when we've talked, that's kind of the biggest priority there is the water tower and maintaining the integrity of that.
We do have a contract in place now for the water tower for maintenance going forward. So we do know that that's set for
9 years.
9 years.
So they'll come in and it's a set price. Every other year they'll come in and inspect it and clean it. And then I think it was every 5 years they do I don't remember exactly what it was, but like a deeper maintenance type inspection and cleaning. But the other thing that I brought up to the council to take into account too is when Alcester signed on with South Lincoln Rural Water in 1987, we signed a 40-year contract with them to purchase water. That contract comes due in 3 years. We sat down with South Lincoln Rural Water to discuss that and some other things, and there's going to be a reconnect fee. If you were at the open forum, I kind of discussed that. They couldn't tell me what that reconnect fee would be, but they compared us to a town of similar size that just went through it, and they use a little bit less water than we do, and theirs was over $250,000 that we would have to come up with when we sign that agreement. So in his words, it would not be out of the realm of possibility for our reconnect fee to be between $250,000 and $500,000. And that would have to be financed. So that would be another addition onto the water.
And that's when the rates will increase.
pardon?
And that's when the rates will
Yeah.
increase.
Yeah.
And the cost of water itself is going up.
Yep. Yeah, we're looking at a 45 cent per 1,000-gallon increase starting in January from South Lincoln for the cost for us to purchase the water. And we still held off on increasing the base rate.
Yeah, because in the big picture, it really looks like doing the maintenance and repairs is not the real obstacle. It's just the education of the public, knowing their rates will go up. And how do you educate the public? That's a good question.
That's why we wanted to have the open forum.
Yeah.
That's why we've tried to publicize this meeting. And getting the word out there is a difficult thing, because you can see the turnout we've had tonight. We've had more citizens here tonight than we've had in meetings the last 6 months, but getting the word out is difficult. And getting the understanding is not easy either.
Tuesday.
Would there be any room in the city's portion of the real estate taxes to skim a little bit off and shoot it into this percent or two?
I mean, the real estate tax, the property tax is, I mean, it's pretty much all spoken for with the general fund and the rest of the budget. You know, going into 2026, there could be, but then you're looking at where do we make cuts from the basics that we've had to do. And the thing with when you get funding, like Tanya and Harley have been talking about, they require, it's called a revenue funding bond. And basically the way they tell you, we're giving you this amount of money at this percentage, and in order for you to guarantee that you can pay it back, you have to charge X amount as a surcharge. So they require that it's added on to your utility rates as a surcharge. So.
The other thing, generally speaking, and this is very general, but in South Dakota, just with water and sewer funds being considered enterprise funds, the intent really is that the user fees fund the system for the water and for the sewer, and stuff doesn't get shuffled between them or from the other general funds.
The state and the accountants really don't like money shuffled from place to place.
Dave, what was that increase that's gonna happen in January?
So our purchase price from South Lincoln Rural Water, we've been paying $3.90 per thousand. I think it was per thousand, and that's going up to $4.35. And they actually had us listed wrong. We should have been paying $4.10 for the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and somehow that got overlooked. And so we've gotten a deal the last few years.
We don't owe them, do we?
No, I made sure to ask them about that. But
Second question, is there any way to, when you put this out to the public, I'm sure there's probably gonna be something coming out in the newspaper or online or whatever. Is there any way to compare our rates to other towns? Like you said, you came from someplace away from here and the rates were this, higher than this. So.
we can with Harley and Tanya's help, we can put, apples to apples together so people can see.
Find some 800 to 1,200 population places and.
We could be like Harrisburg and have it at 98.
Really?
And I think too with that, I mean, when the DNR says that they won't give grant unless you're over what they consider an affordable rate at 65, I mean, communities who are doing improvements generally are getting up above that $65 range. So the current rates likely are very affordable. We just did a study, or I'm working on a study and just finished it up for Aberdeen, and the tough part is that was comparing larger communities. But you've got kind of your anomalies because they're so big, like Sioux Falls, and they have very cheap water with the Lewis and Clark system, and their rates for 5,000 I think are around 35 to 36. But then you get into like some of the Hurons and others, and it's usually in that 50 to 80 range. It's pretty common.
And usually the larger number of users is what drives that rate down.
Right.
So
none of the ones in the comparison I looked at were in the 800 to 1,200 range. That was all the larger cities in South Dakota because it was a study for Aberdeen. So that's where, especially when you get into the smaller communities, they do a improvements project and it's nothing for rates to jump to 80 to 100.
So can you apply for this and still say no?
yeah, when they make a decision in March, if you don't really like the funding package that they recommend, then you can always, we'll just draft up a letter and say you rescinded on the loan and you don't want to go through at this time or whichever. So,
I do think at some point we're gonna have to do something since this plan was already done once 20 years ago and nothing was done on it. So the longer we push it off and push it off, it's just gonna turn into a catastrophic improvement plan that we're not gonna be able to afford several water mains at one time. And we're able to right now break this up into 3 parts technically, 1A, 1B, and 2, correct?
I think we've got actually 1A, 1B, there's a phase 2, 3, and potentially 4.
So right now it's broken up
Try it.
into several phases. If we keep pushing this off, it's gonna have to all happen at once, and that's gonna be where we're not able to afford it. And it doesn't matter if we have grant funding or loans or whatnot, it's still just not gonna be feasible, and we don't know when that's gonna be. I feel that we've put a lot of Band-Aids on a lot of things and covered up the water main breaks that we've been able to, thus far, and if we push it off too much longer, like Dave said, we don't know when our luck is gonna run out.
One really cold winter without snow cover would make a difference.
I really appreciate all the wonderful questions tonight, though, and the engagement. We don't always get that at public hearings, so it's really nice to see.
Well, the atmosphere is we have a good town, we have a good system that's worked. The system just needs some help now. That's all it is, and I know things don't go up, but people don't drive the same vehicles all their life. Everybody does, everybody right sizes when it's the right thing to do. And once in a while, complacency isn't anybody's friend.
And if we have any vision of increasing our size of our town, there's not gonna be a lot of pull for somebody coming in if they're like, well, they didn't take care of their water tower and it collapsed and, they don't wanna get involved in that.
Yeah, my only input coming in is anything you can do to add value to what's already here. That's the name of the game. I mean, to lose it, how do you catch it then when you lose it?
Do we need a motion to give approval to apply for the funding package for
Not
the?
tonight.
did you get the resolution?
This is just a hearing tonight, so.
Did we already do it?
I don't know.
Dave, we did not approve for them to apply to Danner, correct?
Yeah.
We did
We
last
did
time?
approve that.
Okay,
So
sorry.
you were here
supposed
that.
last
to approve
time.
a resolution, yes, which
Okay.
didn't get on the agenda.
Okay,
I'll send that over. And we can do that on another time.
okay, that's what I was questioning, thank you. I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. Any other questions?
Keep
Spread
up the
the
good
word.
work.
Huh?
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, and yeah, you guys are, the public is how things
Spread the
get
word.
spread quickly. We can post online, we can have these meetings, but as you can see, not many people show up, so the more you guys can talk about it and educate, your church groups, your neighbors, anybody is how we're gonna, get the word about.
One example was the survey that went out. I had 2 or 3 people say, it's not the city's business how much money I make.
Yeah, we had quite a few upset phone calls saying the same.
My tongue was swollen and bleeding by the end of the day, a lot of days.
But there wasn't any personal information on that.
Correct.
It was all a code, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did anybody know anything about the code?
Well,
They were completely randomized and
They
anonymous.
accused me of writing down the names and what envelope I put in. A lot of people actually whited out the code or scratched it out. It was a rough couple weeks.
Yeah, I know.
But we are grateful for those that did
Yes,
return the
absolutely.
surveys and
There was no funding that we're
qualify for it.
The low interest loans,
Right.
yes.
But grants.
But, right now, not with the GOED grants, the governor's office of economic development grants, no.
But we could try again in 6 months if we, like you said, found volunteers to go around.
I will
house
fold
to
all
house.
of the envelopes, yeah.
Yeah, my envelope folder.
Yeah. I've proven to be a good stuffer.
Thank you guys for your
Thanks so
input and
much.
explaining everything.
So if there's anything else, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:37, right?